So if you want to tour Australia, maybe you're looking at a light truck as a four-wheel drive motorhome, or maybe you're looking at a conventional motorhome which probably doesn't have much off-road capability. Well, this vehicle is, we think, pretty much unique in Australia. It's a Hiace, but it's been modified for off-road with 200 series parts and components by owner and off-road journalist Mark Allen. So in this video, Mark's going to explain exactly what's been done to turn this Hiace into an off-road capable camper, and we're going to put it up against my Ranger to see how it goes off-road. So Mark, what's the concept behind this? Why not a caravan? Why not a truck like a Canter? Why not a standard four-wheel drive? Why did you go for the effort to modifying this vehicle?
Yeah, Robert, it's trying to get a jack of all trades. I wanted the off-road touring ability. I wanted comfort and ease of use. There's the fuel economy. I've got an MR licence, so I'm licensed to drive all the Fusos. I looked at the Ockers, the Iveco Dailies. This provides much easier, quieter and more economical driving. Having the sliding doors at the back gives us immediate access to preparing food, jumping into bed, grabbing our water or clothes and everything. So it's just ease of use. It's a commanding view. It's not cab over like some of the trucks, so it's much more comfortable. It has low range. I've got a rear diff lock, so to me that represents a much superior off-road touring vehicle than your European vehicles that are more all-wheel drive, and to me they're not as capable off-road.
So if I can summarise that, it's maybe not as capable as, let's say, a Fuso, Canter or an Ocker, but it's a lot more comfortable and economical to run.
Yep.
It's not as capable as, let's say, a Fortuner or Hilux or something like that, but you've got much more space inside of it. So it's just an interesting compromise, and I really like it because there isn't really a small forward control vehicle on the market with off-road capability. The last was the Mitsubishi Delica, but that's no longer produced, and the current models doesn't even have low range. So yep. Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to do this video, because to me this represents a gap in the market, another option which simply didn't exist before you did the conversion.
Yeah, you're spot on, Robert, but I just wanted to buy a newer vehicle, more economical, hopefully more reliable.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at the technicalities and see exactly what's been done to this vehicle to make it the camper off-road that it is.
So initially we bought a brand new Toyota Hiace. This is the super long wheelbase. It's 600 mils longer than the long wheelbase in wheelbase front to rear. It also gives us the higher roof than the long wheelbase model, and that allows us more internal room for storage of all our gear and also headspace. I stand at 6 foot. I can kind of stand up inside a little bit, tilted head. My partner, she's 5'3", so she's got heaps of room. We have added a pop-top roof for the extra comfort, but all up, the super long wheelbase has just given us more internal living and storage space.
So what's going on with the front end there? That bull bar doesn't look standard to me, and I can see some recovery points and a bash plate.
Yeah, Robert, as standard this comes with a lot of low-hanging plastic, the plastic bumper bar down the front, which really impacts on your approach angles. This is a world first replacement bar. Previous to this, the only option we had was a bolt-on bull bar, but it left all the plastic original bumper bar here, which in my mind, it's not the best option. So we waited for this. It replaces the standard plastic. It incorporates rated recovery points. It's rated to carry a electric winch, which we've got there. We've added the driving lights. Underneath there's a whole series of protection plates which just gives a little bit of protection to our steering, the diff and the transfer case. And as an off-road option, I think having that increased approach angle is an absolute must.
But you've got a side rail there. What's going on with that? Is it designed to take the weight of the vehicle?
It's just a little bit of extra protection, even though from the standard Hiace to the four-wheel drive converted version it's gone up 150mm, it still doesn't give us the same sorts of ground clearance as your standard twin cab or my Troopy, which I own. So the bars are basically rock sliders, and they've been given some curry with some of the scratches and things we've been on. I can use them to use my jack on to lift the vehicle up. But yeah, it's just added extra vehicle protection.
So those tyres aren't standard, they're 265, 65, 17, so that's standard size for something like a Fortuner and a Prado, but not for the Hiace. So what happened to be able to fit those taller tyres?
Yeah, it's standard. These vehicles come with a 16-inch rim. Part of the conversion process, there's a larger braking system in there. Those discs won't fit inside a 16-inch rim, so they've gone up to 17s. I would love to fit a slightly taller tyre in there. We're working on that, and the engineers to try and lift it a little bit more. It's just got the standard tyres from the kit, which are an all-terrain tyre. They performed really well on our first trip out. I would like something a little bit more aggressive, but I don't want to go up to a mud tyre or anything like that for the noise.
And is that a custom flare over the front there?
The flares are part of the EnduroCo kit, so to keep within the legalities, they've just extended the sides a little bit to cover the tread.
So I see you've got a snorkel there. That's essential equipment in my view for any four-wheel drive, because that's just great insurance for your engine when you're doing water crossing. So is that a standard part? Talk to us about how that came to be.
Yeah, it's one of the options from EnduroCo. It's made by Tanami, so it's specifically for the Hiace. It is a sealed unit, so that helps with the wading depth, and also just getting cleaner and cooler air all the time.
So at the back there's a standard tow hitch receiver, 50mm. I think the car can tow standard 1500 kilos. Is that the same after modification?
Yep, it's a Toyota towbar. It is still rated at 1.5 tonne towing. Any recoveries that I have to do, I'll just do it straight off the pin. And I've got a 7-pin trailer plug for any trailers that I might have to tow, which generally I don't have to.
And the spare tyre underneath that, does that fit with the slightly increased diameter tyre you've got on the car now?
So part of the EnduroCo kit is to replace the tyre cradle to accept the larger diameter tyre, because the standard just won't fit in there.
And the suspension's not standard on this car, so what's going on there? Presumably it's been lifted, and I also believe there's a GVM upgrade involved as well?
Yeah, so EnduroCo incorporate a 200 series Land Cruiser front end, so it comprises the diff and the control arms. The strut though is from a Hiace. They graft that into the 200 series. The back end is still leaf sprung, but they create a higher spring pack to give it the lift, and overall it's been lifted 150mm from the standard two-wheel drive Hiace to what you see here.
Now you needed some extra carrying capacity, so this vehicle's got a GVM upgrade which is pre-registration, so it's valid in all states and territories. Talk to us about how much extra carrying capacity you have there, and was that part of the standard EnduroCo kit?
So part of the kit was a GVM upgrade up to 4.2 tonne. When we purchased this vehicle, we purchased it unregistered. We trucked it to EnduroCo. So because it's been done pre-rego, it's federally approved, so it's valid in all states and territories of Australia. And that 4.2 tonne GVM upgrade just allowed us to carry all the extra fuel and water and camping equipment that we'd planned to keep on board while we're touring.
There's a long-range tank on this vehicle as well?
Yeah, it was one of the options that I had with the conversion. So the standard tank was removed, and in place is a steel 175 litre fuel tank.
So what sort of range do you get out of that if you're just cruising, say, 80, 90, 100?
Unfortunately, the fuel consumption in this is not as good as I was hoping. As standard, these vans get, maybe 10 litres per 100 Ks. We get anywhere between 15 to up to 18 litres per 100 Ks, depending on how fast you're driving, the conditions, and even tyre pressures. That does make a difference to this. So yeah, I'm kind of from 1,000 Ks, maybe up to 1,200 K range.
So, Mike, essentially it's Land Cruiser 200 series kit underneath to turn it into a four-wheel drive. So you've got all-wheel drive, and Does the kit come standard with a rear locker, rear cross-axle locker, or was that extra?
No, that was an optional extra. So as you said, we're in high range with the centre diff lock, the centre diff open. I can lock the centre diff. I shift into neutral. I can go from high range to low range. And as the optional extra that I ticked was a rear e-locker. And to me, just having as much drive as possible is a very important factor for four-wheel driving. So it's a combination of suspension flex, which this doesn't have a lot, ground clearance, again, this doesn't have a lot. So the maximum drive is achieved by cross-axle lockers.
And what about the transmission? Is that a 6-speed out of the 200 series?
No, standard Hiace 6-speed automatic with sequential or manual shifting option. So again, it's just park, reverse, neutral and drive, or across to the right and you can manually shift through the 6 gears.
Anything been done to the standard Hiace engine?
No, currently it's just the standard intercooled turbo diesel, a 2.8 litre. Given the larger diameter tyres, it's over-geared it a little bit, so it does tend to labour a little bit. A remap is on the cards, just to give it a little bit extra torque to help hold gears and hopefully improve the fuel economy, which is not great.
Could you also change the diff ratios to bring the gearing down a bit?
I could do that. I think it would be easier and better to increase the torque curve to one for on-road. You know, up in the Territory, we were cruising at 130 k's an hour on the bitumen just so easily. It's easy to do, even though it's almost shaped like a big brick or a Vienna loaf of bread. Yeah, that extra torque, I believe, will help with better fuel consumption as well, rather than doing the re-gearing mechanical work.
So we're going to start off with demonstrating the Ranger on an obstacle, then the Hiace. That gives you an idea of what's what. So here you can see that the Ranger's out of flex, brake traction control pulls it through. And here's the Ranger driving slightly faster, and you can see it goes through without any problem. Now here's the Hiace. You see it comes to a stop. Now there's no brake traction control, no electronic traction control working, so Mark has to engage the rear cross-axle differential lock, and you can see once he's done that, then the car drives through no problem at all. And you can also see the length of that wheelbase, and it gets closer to the ground. More on that later on. And here's the car just coming through without the locker and just a little bit more momentum, no problem, as you can see. Now we are into a more technical section, more than just one rut. We're going to send the Ranger up first, and Mark's opted to put the left wheel deep into that rut, as you can see, because it's got the clearance to be able to do that. And now you see the car just runs out of axle flex, the traction control works and pulls it through without too much of a drama. Now here's the Hiace, and the first thing to note is that the Hiace's wheelbase is a lot longer than the Ranger, and the turning circle is consequently much worse, so Mark opts to essentially just drive the car back and line it up a bit, something he didn't have to do in the Ranger, and the Ranger is not even the best turning circle on the market by a long way. So manoeuvrability is something to consider when you're in tight areas as well. The Hiace isn't any wider than a normal four-wheel drive, it's just the length and the turning circle. Now if the car all lined up, Mark is going for the obstacle again. You can see straddling that rut a bit more than in the Ranger, and consequently the wheels are more likely to be on the ground. He's got the rear cross-axle differential lock in, so at this point here that wheel's in the ground, but the car has plenty of traction and it's just able to power through without a problem at all. We drove the Ranger without its locker in, just for comparison. Now this is a short but rutted climb. Again, the Ranger's going up first, so you've got a point of comparison, and we're just idling it up nice and slow. We've actually got the rear locker in, and you can see at this point the Ranger actually runs out of grip and both rear wheels are spinning. So the solution there is just back it up just a little bit, because the car's not out of clearance, it's just out of grip, and you'll see in a sec it's the rear wheels which are causing a problem. A little bit more momentum, just a fraction more, and then up and over it comes without a problem. Now here's the Hiace, and again it's a little bit more difficult to manoeuvre the car in line with the climb. You want to try and be going straight up here, but it is possible. It's by no means impossible. And same sort of thing, the car gets past that bit, it's also got its rear locker engaged this time and comes to a halt. But you can see that the right front wheel isn't as much in the air, and that's due to the wheelbase. We'll explain that in a moment. So again, same thing, we just back up a little bit.
Try from there.
And just give it a little bit more momentum. And then the Hiace comes up too as well. Now this split view shows the two cars, and you can see that they both got hung up with the same problem. The right rear wheel just gets into that rut and it can't get over that, and both have to back up and take a little bit more momentum. Now the Achilles heel of the Hiace is its ramp over angle, which is essentially how sharp a crest it can drive over. So I'm going to put the Range Rover first. You can see that there's plenty of space, doesn't even come close to touching. And now the Hiace is going to follow suit, and because it's got a longer wheelbase, which is the distance between the front and rear wheels, you can see that it does in fact touch about now. So that can lead to the car getting hung up, as in fact we will see later. Now we've got a much tougher climb, and we put the rear locker in the Ranger, so you can see the wheel is lifting here. And again, these ruts are dug out by Ranger sized vehicles, so the extra length in wheelbase of the Hiace, you can see the wheels lifting quite a bit there. So that's where cross axle lockers really come into their own. So here's the Hiace then, and it does have sufficient clearance to get through, as you can see, but the front will scrape the ground there. There it goes, so it's running out of clearance. Even though there's a wheel in the air, it does get through, and it does just about touch, but again manage. Now we've got even steeper climb with wheels in the air. You can see that the Ranger has got the rear locker in, but it's actually run out of traction on the back axle. So we go back for another go. A little bit more momentum, and just look at that wheel lift, it's pretty huge, and that's why the Ranger ran out of traction. Once it's through there, it's all good and we're able to come up. There's no traction control on the front axle when the rear locker is engaged. Now here's the Hiace. And again, the extra wheelbase helps. It's got more stability, so it's able just to keep pushing through, whereas the Ranger didn't. It's not more capable, it's more capable on this track because the ruts suit it in this case. And from the side you can see just how deep that rut is. There's really no traction on the back axle, both wheels are spinning. And it's quite dusty. So we just go back for that little extra run. And I've got Mark to drive in the deepest rut just to make it as hard as possible for the car. A little bit of wheel spin. Just look at the body roll there. Now if we take a look at the Hiace, same line, but it's just so much more stable. But you can see that the side rail actually does slightly touch at that point, and it's lucky it didn't completely slow the car down. Wouldn't have been a problem if it had touched it strong enough. Alright, I was determined to slow this Hiace down, so here we go. This is another rutted uphill, and you can see that the Ranger gets through with the rear locker engaged without any drama at all. Hiace comes up, and again I've got Mark to take the harder line here, and what happens? Well, let's take a look. Wheel lift there, up over the top, and we're out of ramp angle. Finally, the Hiace is stuck. I knew I could get it stuck, I just had to try hard enough. So it goes back, and you're going to try a different line. And you can see that that ramp angle really is the Achilles heel, and the car is just not going to get over that.
But go back and try it with a...
Now I should add that this is a difficult four-wheel drive obstacle, and it's more difficult than what you'd normally see. And here's Mark trying a different line. So I said, look, take whatever line you can to get over. It still doesn't work. He's still quite a long way off. So he'd have to winch out of that or track build or something.
That's going nowhere, I don't think.
Now this is Mark avoiding the ruts with a bit more momentum to see if he can get the Hiace over. Still doesn't work. Now this is a similar obstacle. Again, you can see that the Ranger comes over. Wheel lifts in the air, but doesn't look like touching anywhere close. Now we try it with the Hiace, and there are techniques to angle off the but again, just out of ramp angle. So I would say if you buy one of these cars, definitely buy those sliders or those sill protectors.
Try all the way over
very,
to the
very
right, maybe that would work.
Investment. Now we're deliberately putting the Hiace through tougher terrain than you'd find on almost any four-wheel drive track, just to see what it can do and what its limits are. So don't take the fact it's stuck as lacking in four-wheel drive capability. Had this been one of the European all-wheel drive wagons, it wouldn't have kept up with the Hiace at all. And the fact the Hiace can't keep up with the Ranger in some situations is no shame on it. I personally wouldn't have any hesitation in buying one of these vehicles to tour Australia and do a lot of four-wheel driving in the process.
Nah, it's not. You're well and truly out of ramp on this side. Well and truly. Very close though. Now you're well and truly out of ramp over on that side, but very close.
So time for recovery. I'm using a winch extension strap. I'm carefully taking up the slack, applying no power. Once the slack's taken up, I apply a fraction of power and Mark pulls through. So it's all really gentle, no need for a kinetic recovery here, just a very gentle tow. Now in this test we started both vehicles at the top of the hill, first gear low range, didn't touch the brakes, just to look at the relative engine braking, and as you can see it was pretty similar. The Hiace definitely has some good engine braking there, as you'd expect using those 200 series components and low range. I would also advise using the rear locker for descents when it's undulating. So that's the end of the four-wheel drive testing. And Mark, I don't know about you, but what we did today, whilst it's in an abandoned quarry, I would say that is harder than pretty much any access track to any, let's say, off-road recreation you're going to find. If you wanted to go to, I don't know, a tourist attraction here and there, you're not going to find stuff as rough as that, wouldn't you say?
You're spot on, Robert. And just as an example, to date, we've done one big trip in this, which took about 8 weeks, 10,000 Ks through the Flinders Ranges in Central Australia. There was no four-wheel drive track that was as demanding as what you've just put me through. Lots of corrugations, lots of potholes and rough tracks, which this handled no worries. There's a few high clearance, low range four-wheel drive tracks only, and I did scrape a little bit, but I've never been stuck in this like I got stuck with you on some of those huge ruts.
So was there anywhere where you thought, nah, I'm not going to go, or did you just point at wherever you wanted to go?
Today? Or
on your trip?
On our trip, look, some of the tracks that were signposted high clearance only, I guess I was worried, but I've got max tracks.
But did you do them? That's the question.
I did them all.
Yeah, okay, so the point being is that on that trip there was nowhere that you wanted to go, you turned around and said no, whereas if this had been a standard Hiace, there would definitely have been points you'd have gone, no, I can't go up there, but with this, it isn't limiting you basically.
There is not a chance in the world that a standard Hiace would get where we've been.
No,
not a chance.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, there are limitations with this. Now, the other point is that Mark is an expert four-wheel driver. He does know how to pick a line, and we have deliberately run some of the harder lines today. But if you look at where an expert could take this versus a novice, there's a difference. So you might need to be an expert driver to drive where a novice would go in a Ranger. So you do need to keep that in mind. So to get the best out of this, you really want to up your four-wheel drive driving skills in terms of picking a line, etc. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, you're spot on again, Robert. I wouldn't advise people doing what I've done today in this. I had you as a spotter in both forwards and backwards, and I can rely on you, I know that. I've done a lot before, but I would highly recommend people doing an advanced off-road driving course and practice. Start on easy things, work your way up, and go as somebody else. I've been stuck a few times today. You've helped me out. Having a backup vehicle is always a big thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. So in summary then, what would you say to people who are considering one of these vehicles? Because people might be looking, okay, should I tow? Should I get myself a Ocker or a Canter? Should I go for that Jayco Sprinter based van? You know, there's a million different options out there.
If you want a little bit of everything, jack of all trades, yeah, I still believe this is the vehicle. It won't match off-road capabilities of an Ocker, a Veco Daily or a Unimog. A Unimog, yeah, it would be fantastic if you want to drive at 80 to 90 k's an hour and can't hear each other and, you know, cost a fortune to run. So yeah, there's pros and cons with everything. I think the biggest disadvantage with this is overall lack of ground clearance and manoeuvrability. The turning circle on this is atrocious compared to, as we've seen today, your Ranger. But overall, I still think we have chosen the best all-round vehicle for what suits us. It gives us the comforts of opening a door, getting into an inner spring mattress bed. We can access our clothes, our food, our fridge, four-wheel drive recovery gears in the back. I know I'm going to get stuck sooner or later out touring and on the tracks. I've got the winch, the max tracks, and the know-how to use it all to get us out.
Yeah, and fundamentally I think the takeaway is if you've got the skills, this vehicle will get you to, I'd say, any four-wheel drive destination in Australia, or 99% of them anyway. From what I've seen today, and based on what I've seen today and my assessment of what four-wheel drive tracks around like Australia, so I think it's a reasonable, very, very good option to have. And finally, let's talk about the cost. So if you wanted to buy a Hiace, send it for conversion, forget the camper conversion, just get it converted what you have, the 200 series stuff, the rear locker, the tyres, the suspension, the GVM upgrade, what would that set you back approximately?
Okay, very roughly, this is a year and a half old. When we bought this van, brand new from Toyota, unregistered, was 58 grand. We trucked it to EnduroCo. At the time, the conversion, including the GVM upgrade, the snorkel, the long-range tanks, all the rear diff lock, all the options that I ticked, was approximately 50 grand. So 50 for the vehicle, 58, call it 60 for the vehicle, yeah, and 50 for the conversion. There's 110, and then plus whatever other internal fit outs.
Okay, so but just the base vehicle itself to be as capable as this, about 110ish at the moment.
Yep.
Okay, and then on top of that, you then got to look at your fit out, which would be a camper or whatever else the case may be. So that would obviously depend on what you wanted to do. So that's actually quite good value if you start looking at it against a 200 series or a light truck or something like that as well. So it's not stratospheric cost. I mean, there's 79 series getting around with $250,000, which is
that's right.
Well, I think I'd rather have one of these, truth be told, even if it doesn't look as good on Instagram.
Well, that's exactly right. So as a good example, you mentioned the 79 series. I do own a Troopy. If I had to buy a brand new Troopy, I don't know, mid-80s, and then so you've already got a good four-wheel drive, but then plus the camper van conversions on top of that, you're going to come up to a similar price to this.
Great. Well, hopefully you found this video useful. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, Robert.